Have you ever run across an issue from a title where you weren't able to overcome it, where it was just something that was too big?
Nothing off the top of my head. I think one of the big ones right now, and it actually popped up the other day, we were having a conversation, was lack of access down four-lane highways. Like the properties along the highway, some of them didn't have access. And in order to procure financing, you need to have legal access. And the state sometimes, there's a lot to it, right? There's a lot to it, and I don't want to get into it. That's a whole nother subject, but the state does things a little bit differently than we would do them in the civilian world. And some properties have access, some properties don't. That access can be taken away. Now, it can't just strip it from you. They can't just take your property from you. There's a lot of things that protect landowners in there, even from eminent domain ideology along the state highways. But at the end of the day, that'd probably be one of the major ones. I think access overall, I think just general access has been the biggest hurdle in our business.
And I would say that's, to your question, that's generally, except in Jeremy's scenario that he presented, usually a fixable one. The one I've seen that it doesn't necessarily, I haven't seen it deter a buyer from moving forward, but it's something that's really hard to fix is mineral rights. So it's rare in Wisconsin to see mineral rights separated from essentially your bundle of rights that you're getting when you buy the property. But I've had like one example where it was land that had been owned by multiple real estate investment trusts, big paper company land that then transferred to another firm, basically all investment firm stuff, where the initial sale from one of the larger firms decades ago, they did hold on to the mineral rights. It doesn't mean that there's anything they're going to use there for mineral rights, and as an owner of the property, should they decide to do it, it's not like they just kick you out and start going to town. Like there's a lot built into what you'll get as the landowner from them having the mineral rights, but it's still one that is really hard to ever, quote unquote, clean off from the title commitment to get it off of.
Yeah. To give you a background on that, how that worked is when the United States was created and they started patenting off parcels of land, essentially these large corporations were buying it. Remember what the asset was timber. Right. Starting in the mid 1800s, late 1881, 1885, all the way through 1902, 1915, they were sweeping through, and these companies were just buying up large tracts of land, and they were just harvesting all the timber off the high ground. It was like a plague of locusts running through the hillside, right, taking everything off of it. It left behind, hardwood was really not even sought after at that point, but there was a lot of virgin timber, a lot of pine and softwoods, and they were taking it. Well, there was no value to the property after that. So they were essentially giving it away. Like you come in and you could get it for, literally pennies on the dollar. And the only thing they retained were mineral rights because they didn't know, in an unknown situation in 1920, right, you didn't know what you were going to do. So you're like, well, our company is going to just hold that mineral right. And in since then, it has been a thing where sometimes, imagine a stack of papers comes in this high, 8.5 by 14 sheets of paper that high, and mineral rights are blanketed through every single legal description in there. And if it's all on 10 point, it literally covers hundreds of thousands of acres. Sometimes we've been able to go back. So in mining country, he's not from mining country, I'm from mining country. And the mineral rights were the only thing that was left behind because there was coal, there was iron ore, and they didn't even know if there was, because of the amount of rivers and things, they knew that there was maybe gold, silver, nickel, sure, things like that. They've transferred them, and some of them, they don't have access. It's a weird situation, but you can request for them to be just turned back over. And a lot of times they will turn them over. Sometimes they're like, hey, it was blanketed. Sometimes the title insurance companies will just say, listen, it's not a problem. It's never impeded title in any way, shape, or form. Like mineral rights can be retained. It's just, they can't And the reason that it is, so let's go one step further, because if you're watching this and you're like, holy crap, I don't want to buy.
We started off, how did Whitetail Dreams Real Estate become a company? And now we're at mineral rights. And this is part of what we do on a regular basis, though. It's educational rabbit hole. So.
Well, and it is, but at the same time, it was all of these things were what made me go, holy cow, there's a space in the marketplace for a guy out there who can just say, listen, make better investment decisions. If you're a seller, you need somebody like me who can explain this and the liability of this and get you in touch with the proper attorneys, get you in touch with the proper title company. So, you say like, well, how was it created? Because there was a hole in the marketplace and people were being taken advantage of. So back to this, if you bought a property and the mineral rights were reserved, and it's an exception on your title policy, and it says, mineral rights are owned by somebody else. Those people can't come in, as he said, they can't come in and just kick you off the land and start digging a hole in the ground. There is a whole bunch of steps that need to happen. I have never had it happen. As a matter of fact, in most cases, mining now, even exploration, is done with magnets on helicopters. So they're flying over these places and they're checking ground densities, and they know that these minerals that they're looking for are in certain rock formations. And they're able to find this by flying over with helicopters and ground penetrating sonar and all this stuff. And it's extremely fascinating, but I've never had anybody kicked off of their property for this, right? Sure. And if, as redneck as I can be, I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff. Like, I want to know these types of things. And that was the whole. So yes, we digressed. If you get to know me, you'll know that every answer is a link to it, because it's an educational process. And real estate is the most sought after investment in the United States. But with that being said, it's also the most perverted. It's people are constantly trying to lie about what the situation is. They're trying to hold back things from you. And maybe sometimes unknowingly, maybe it was a corporation who did it years ago. So it was my job. I felt it was my duty to start a company that would help people make good, sound investments. So when they went to sell it, their end game didn't have a problem impeding their ability to sell their property, right? Or somebody didn't come in and say, we're going to take advantage of you because that mineral rights. Well, how does it devalue? If you're buying a property for its mineral rights, it could devalue your property. If you're buying a property just for use and enjoyment, the mineral rights don't, they're probably never going to be used. Doesn't matter. So, and that's sort of how it all came about, and it made sense. And at first the goal was never to just close as many deals as possible, and it was just to take every transaction and just treat it professionally and treat it like it was my own deal every single time. And we'll circle back to why I didn't want somebody coming in. People saw real estate, prior companies I worked for, companies, bosses, investors, things that I've seen over the years. It was all about how to move and get rich quick in real estate. And that brush it under the table, get the next buyer in and move on mentality was really tough on me. And I think the first thing that I wanted, so I didn't know him. He called me out of the blue. I'm like, don't call me. I don't want rookies.
Have you ever had somebody call you up before and say, hey, I want a job being an agent for you?
All the time.
Really? Okay.
Oh, we get messages all the time. We interview people all the time. And they come in and I know how to hunt. I know all about property. I walk property all the time.
So what made Patrick stand out different for you?
He wouldn't let me off the phone.
That's awesome.
He flat out just wouldn't let me off the phone. So it was also one of the things, if I was going to move forward with hiring somebody, I wanted somebody who was not somebody who was riding my shirt tail, but somebody who was going to come in and be my equal. Maybe not in the first day, maybe not in the first year, but somebody who was willing to listen and learn, and somebody who had the same care in their heart to look after people and do the job the right way. And show up for every inspection, show up for every appraisal, Show up whenever you're asked. This isn't a shortcut. This is your job. Do the job.
The non-fluffy way, like you said, I forget exactly how you just worded it, but basically to show up and everything, but mostly it was, don't get me sued, is what it amounted to, like errors and omissions, right? Like he wanted not someone reckless, not someone, as what I learned afterwards, more of a fear for you as well that I wasn't aware of, because in real estate, I mean, you can
Misrepresentation?
misrepresent something very, very easily if you're not careful.
Hire the right attorneys. Get attorneys involved when they're needed. So many guys are like, oh, you don't need an attorney.
Well, not just, yeah.
You do.
Someone who would rather, because obviously we all make mistakes, it's always going to happen, but rather to face those mistakes head on and be held accountable for them rather than sweep them under the rug, kick the can down the road, and hope no one ever found out about it.
I never wanted my name attached to that.
Exactly, and that's how people lose licenses. That's how people get, at the very least, that kind of information spreads. Everyone in the real estate community knows your word of mouth is your either best reputation builder or killer. It moves quick.
I think that's the hard part too. You bring up a really good point. We have a reputation in the marketplace as maybe not being the easiest company to deal with because we're going to do the job right. They just want to get in and do the job, make the money, and move on. And that's not how we operate.